Hello and welcome to Game Gumbo. Today we're unboxing Aftershock, a 2019 release by Stronghold Games. This is a game for 2 to 5 players that plays in about 60 minutes. And it's mostly an area control game. So here we have our rulebook. And our game board. So the game board is double-sided, depending on the number of players you're playing with. You'll either play the San Francisco side for 4 or more players, or you'll play the Venice side for 2 to 4 players. As you can see, we have the score track around the side of the board and several different areas. These are the areas that you're trying to have control of, and they will score a certain number of points each round if the area does score. You also see several different locations for bridges. Bridges can be built spanning areas, but you have to build an entire bridge at a time. You can't partially build it. So let's see what else we've got here. We've got some Punchboard here. So first player token here. Each player is going to get 1 of each of these bid tokens, and these can be used after the buy phase. So players will buy cards. They'll get a certain amount of cards at the beginning of the round, and they can buy cards from their hand. Interesting thing about this game is you start with 15 million, but you never really get more money. It's a closed economy. So at the end of each round, all the money that's been spent will be divvied back up to the players, but you never really add more money. So at the end of each round, after players can buy cards from their hands, they can also buy the cards that other players didn't buy. And you have 3 tokens to do this with. 1 that reduces the price of the card by 2 million, 1 reduces it by 1, and 1 that increases the price by 1 million, but you can use this one as many times as you want. When you use the 2 million, it flips over. The 1 million flips over, but the tax one, you can use as much as you want. So each player is going to have 3 of those tokens. You've got some of these Aftershock tokens. Aftershocks are cards you can buy as well, and they have values on them. Essentially, when you play an Aftershock, you're moving meeples out of an area, forcing movement. And the value is whatever's on the tile plus a roll of a 6-sided die, which actually only goes up to 3. So 1, 2, or 3. Some more Aftershock tokens. Here are the scoring tokens and the extra influence tokens, and I'll explain how those work a little bit later. We got a board just of 1s, and all this punch board is sturdy and easy to punch out, as you would expect from a Stronghold game. Extra bags, a bunch of extra bags, which is always helpful. Here's our bag of various player pieces. So each player is going to have pieces for bridges and meeples in their color. And then they're also going to have some house meeples as well. So just show you these. The blue meeples. You see they got little hard hats on. And then bridge tokens. And there's a standard bag of house meeples. These are pretty standard. Okay. The other things we have in here are player screens, 1 for each player. The player screen on one side, the side that you'll see, will have your turn guide, explain how all the different phases work. And then on the other side, the only reason for the other side is to, 1, remind players what color you are, but also you have these little clips that will go on here and denote how many bridges you've built. And that is important because there is a scoring mechanism for who has the most built bridges. These boards, which are double-sided, either you're playing the San Francisco board on this side or the Venice board on this side. This is how scoring happens. So scoring is going to happen every round. This is going to be behind your shield, so people won't be able to see where you're putting your tokens. And you're going to use those scoring tokens that I showed you earlier. And you're going to put these tokens out onto the areas that you want to score for the round. So there's all the areas on the board, and then most bridges can also be scored. So depending on how many players you have, you're going to get a certain number of your scoring tiles. Let's say you get 3 of them. And then you're going to place them out. So let's say I want most bridges and Palo Alto and Richmond to score. You also get to put out any influence tokens that you've accumulated throughout the round, and those will be from cards that you buy. Now the thing to know is that each area is only going to score if a total of 2 scoring tokens are on it collectively between all players. But you can't put your 2 tokens on the same spot. So I could not put 2 tokens here to ensure that most bridges score. But I can use this extra one to augment one of my tokens, or I could put it on another area. It's my choice. This is going to be done behind the screen in secret, and then all players are going to reveal. And any area that has 2 or more tokens from all players is going to score for that round. The last thing we have, second to last thing, here's our die, again, 1 to 3. And then the cards that you'll be using throughout the game. So you'll get 8 cards. Any cards from your hand of 8 that you want to keep, you have to pay for. And every card has a price. Any cards you do not buy, you're going to put in front of your screen, and then other players are going to be able to buy from the cards that you didn't choose from, that you didn't choose to keep, using their buying tokens. And that's going to keep going around until everybody passes. So you can essentially spend as much as you want if you have a bunch of money. The last thing that's going to happen is, of the cards that are left in front of your screen, you get to keep one. So there are 2 decks of cards, depending on what board you're playing with. Either you're playing with the Venice board or you're playing with the San Francisco board. So let's look at the San Francisco cards. So some cards just let you put out meeples, which again, it's area control, so that's a good thing. Tells you how much it costs, how many meeples you're going to put out, what area, and then it just tells you where the area is on the board, so you don't, have to go looking for it. Some of them put out multiples, some of them put out 1, but those all essentially work the same way. Once we get through those, we have the bridge cards. Now each player is going to start with one of these at the beginning of the game. So at the very beginning of the game, you're going to get 1 bridge card plus 7 cards. In every other round, and you're going to play either 2 or 3 rounds, depending on the number of players, you're just going to get dealt 8 cards randomly. You also don't keep any cards that you don't play. So every card in the game is going to get shuffled back in round 2 and round 3 and get dealt back out. The bridge cards, again, have a certain value. They allow you to put out 1 worker in any area you want and 1 bridge token. Now, this is different than these cards because these cards happen first. These placement cards happen right away. This happens in the planning phase, and the planning phase is secret. That happens behind your screen. Again, you're going to use your board with all the little different areas on it, and you're going to put your bridge tokens and your meeples out where you want them. So this is not only a way to get out bridges, which is very important, but also a way to kind of add meeples in a secret way that your opponents don't know that you're doing. Then we have the influence tokens. So this just gives you an extra influence marker, which we spoke about earlier. And then finally, the aftershocks. So there's a couple different aftershocks, varying values, and that just depends on basically how strong they are. The way the aftershocks work is that you're going to force meeples to move out of a particular location. So just like with the bridges and the meeples, you're going to do this in secret during the planning phase. You're gonna have this board behind your screen and you're gonna say, all right, I'm gonna put the Aftershock in Oakland. And then after everything's been resolved, then you're gonna do the Aftershock. And the Aftershock is whatever number is on the tile. So in this case, nothing plus a roll of the die. And that many meeples have to move. It's the choice of the person rolling the die, which meeples move. So if you have multiple opponents or you're in the zone and don't want to move your own guys out, you can choose other people to move. And they have to move out of that area into another adjacent area using the bridges that have been built. If they use a bridge that they have built in their color, then they can just move freely. But if they have to use somebody else's bridge, they have to pay that person $1 million. Or they can simply remove their meeple from the board and not move them. And that's it. That's everything you're going to get in Aftershock from Stronghold Games.